Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the podcast we're still trying to name. Your host, Trevor Henson. Today, we have a special guest with us, Mr. JP Finkelstein. JP, he's a seasoned multifamily investor right here in our fine city of Long Beach, with 3 years experience at Buckingham Investments, correct?
Correct.
And what's your title at Buckingham?
So very technically a real estate salesperson. We're a brokerage, but we like to think of ourselves as investment advisors. So we do a lot of work on the underwriting and try and put all the pieces together, mostly for mom and pop investors and newer investors. So
Okay.
a lot of hand holding and trying to walk them into the space.
I see, right. And so what side of the sale are you on, JP?
Buy side. Yeah.
So you're on the buy side, you're representing. So for those who don't know what buy side means, that means JP is a buyer's representative. So if you're looking for an apartment building, you would call JP to help you find it, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And what was the full name of your company?
Buckingham Investments.
And where are they located?
Right now, there's an office in Torrance, but we used to have a location in Long Beach, very active in the Long Beach area in the South Bay.
Awesome. And at the end, give you a chance to throw out your email and phone number so that anyone wants to get in touch with you, make sure they can. Thanks for taking the time to join us, man.
Yeah,
Always
thank you for having
appreciate
me. Really excited.
So with that, we'll just dive right in. With being in the real estate, we were talking before the show here. You mentioned that you started pretty much right before COVID in 2020, right? That's when you decided this is the time JP's coming in to start being a multifamily broker. And what month was that? And what was that like? And how's it coming in hot into COVID?
It was, it had been in the works a little bit before COVID started. I didn't really find the company until I want to say August of 2020. So it was like right in the middle of it. That was
really right in the middle of it.
Yeah, that was, as we were talking when everything froze up and people were thinking. And in fact, actually, I think that's an interesting point is throughout all of this, there's been news headlines and fires, and everyone's always got their finger on the panic button, which is interesting because for the most part, everything's been chugging along.
Everything's made it.
The market froze and then it took off and then it froze back up a little bit again. And now we're here.
Then did whatever it's doing right now. We're not
exactly.
Not sure. What was that like when you started it August of 2020? Well, walk us through a little bit of that, because I'm sure there's others brokers out there who's just like that jumped in at that time too, and here you are still here. And this is some of the most difficult real estate we've seen since, at least I've seen since 2008-9.
It was actually, ironically, I think a really good time to come in fresh, because you weren't coming into kind of like a moving machine, right? And trying to get on the freeway, so to speak. So it gave me some time to get out there, practice, learn a little bit, go through some of the growing pains as a newer agent and investor. And then from a buy side perspective, it was a fantastic time. I mean, I originally got into it and landed where I was. Quite candidly, I had no interest in being a realtor. I always make the joke that when I was going after my real estate license, I was like, do I really want to like have my face on a park bench or on a bus bench? But I wanted to be an investor first, and just got really lucky. Found a place that taught multifamily investing and kind of jumped in. And then timing was right. Rates dropped, but then maybe some of the metrics hadn't shot up quite to where they were. So I was able to get in at a really good time.
It was a good time to buy.
Yeah, exactly. Luck really plays a huge role.
Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Right. It's location, then luck is the two big factors.
My uncle's favorite phrase is luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. So
there it is. That 100%, 100%. So then with that, what was your first deal in this COVID-ness that you walked into?
The only reason why I bring this up is because it comes into an important piece that I don't think people always consider. I was a physics student at the time. I was kind of going back and forth on that. The math got a little hard for me. So, dabbling. But I also had some inheritance that I was trying to allocate with my sister, and we wanted to partner on the deal. I just thought the numbers, we had to go in the 4-unit space. But as you know, residential lending is paramount to your W-2 income. And, I didn't have too much to show. So thankfully we had enough. We actually ended up stretching, found a very, perfect deal in the 5+ space So went immediately into that. And my personal take is I think that space is so much easier and simpler, especially from a buy and hold perspective.
The 5 to 10 unit space. Is that
Yeah,
about?
yeah, exactly. The numbers usually account for things like property management, lending, make sure you cash flow. So as long as you do your underwriting well and you keep it straightforward, you're not pigeonholed by kind of some of the more semantic valuations of the 4+ space or 4 and below space.
Right, because you're dealing with Freddie and Fannie loans as well.
Exactly, yeah. Something that I felt was personally interesting is you got kind of better metrics because with real estate, it's big purchases. So when you have more kind of
Yeah,
funds
right.
available in the lending space, it means there's more funds to put into the space. So, it kind of drives the prices up.
Until you have a market where there's nobody doing anything. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So maybe now's a good time
right. So let's talk about it now. That's a good segue. You're on the front lines. You're the one making the calls. I know those calls are like 80, 100 calls a day. I know brokers just going for it because that's the game, right? What are you seeing in the market right now? Like what is trading, if anything, with money all but frozen?
Definitely been some good opportunities with like assumable loans where somebody's
Uh,
done the value add or something and are looking to they need the transaction velocity. Also we're 3 years out from 2020 where rates were at an all-time low. Most commercial loans are 3 to 5 year fixed. So
mhm.
right in this window, you're having people coming out of their fixed interest rate. When those loans
Are you seeing that yourself? Have you?
yeah, it's starting. I think the wave started. I think it's maybe a little bit longer just because what interest rates ran into like 2021, early
Right.
2022.
It was like
And then,
yesterday.
yeah, exactly.
I swear it was
It's crazy
yesterday.
to think about it that
It
way.
was
Yeah.
3.5% like yesterday. I swear it was.
I had clients that were ready for a 5% loan and then overnight, or no, it was a 7% hard money loan. And then literally overnight, they were like, we can't honor it. It's 10% now.
Yeah, because Prime moved to like, yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
that
wow,
was,
that has to hurt. Oh,
it definitely hurt at the time.
ooh,
But
ooh.
we've also seen a lot of, if you can find something with ADU potential, especially in the residential space, because you
The
can get in
excess.
for 25% down,
I see.
a little bit of cash, do the ADU. If you want to refinance, you can. If you can sit on it, you can just kind of, hopefully you're breaking even, making a little bit, and you just wait out until tides turn.
Tell me a little bit more about your ADU, and ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit. For those listening, it can be new construction or a freestanding new construction, correct? Or you could be added as you could convert a carport, or you can convert sometimes a large laundry room into a permitted legitimate unit based on the size of the building. There's certain maximums and minimums.
I don't know how much you guys get into metrics here, but
Quite a
I
bit.
know that GRM is one that we use a lot, which is gross rent multiplier.
Why do you use that over cap rate or IRR?
Just because it's harder to fluff. I mean, the example that I use is, say, Trevor, you came to me and you're like, I've got a 7 cap, but you're doing your own property management, or there's something in there that you're not accounting for it. And I run my numbers. I'm like, what do you mean it's a 7 cap? Whereas when we're looking at a gross rent multiplier, it's really easy to compare what the market rent is, and you can kind of ballpark things a little bit better.
Everyone has an opinion on what the number is. It's always
Yeah,
interesting to
I mean,
benchmark.
you know,
So how does the ADU play into all of this with that using the GM gross rent
yeah.
multiplier,
So
gross rent multiplier?
pretty much California is an interesting place. I mean, you pretty much put a box anywhere and you've got $1,200 a month. Well, when you add that up over, a year, that's a significant amount of value add, especially if you're getting 15 or $13 per extra dollar of rental income. Just by adding another opportunity, you've grossly increased the value of the property. And if you got a good lender, you can take advantage of that early. It just, adds some buffer.
To refi it as if it was a 3 unit, then refi it as now a 4 unit once the ADU is built. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the direction like you've seen a lot of your clients going? Is that the opportunity
Yeah,
at the moment?
yeah, especially for people just kind of starting out. It is a challenge because you need a little bit more capital, and California's already an expensive place. So you can't come in with light pockets. I mean, it's not like, COVID probably the best play is if you could do an FHA loan, get in, keep some cash on the side, fix things up, you're in a really good spot. That definitely is the caveat. But if you have the money to play, you can definitely snag some good deals, some undervalued deals, and squeeze a little bit of your juice for that long-term buy and hold.
Right. Are you seeing much seller carry back where they're carrying back the loans because people can't get lending?
Yeah, interestingly enough, that was a really big part for probably the past 6 months in the brokerage. Like, in fact, we were kind of told, look for seller carry deals. Because there's a huge disparity between, what you can afford to buy now and where sellers want to move. But if you can be creative, you can lock up some really good deals and just do a seller carry.
So for all the sellers listening out there who don't understand that, who think they're being taken advantage of, I believe it actually works out pretty well for the seller because they end up getting the price they want. Am I correct? Because the price is locked, but they're just carrying the financing until banks become reasonable for whatever determinable amount of time you guys negotiate, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it definitely creates like a win-win because, if I'm a seller, how am I going to take, maybe a 10, 20% hit when affordability is dropped?
Yeah, exactly. How have you been successful with your clients saying a carryback of become the bank, so to speak? How do you pitch that to your clients?
I think from the client's perspective, they've got the capital, they want to make the deal work. The person I think you got to pitch it the most to is the seller. And find out if it's right for them. A lot of times our brokerages had to talk to the seller's agents and just ask the question, would your seller be open to it? Because I think we get stuck in going one direction and nobody thinks about another avenue until somebody brings the topic up to try and make it work.
Great point. Ask the question. All they can say is no.
Yeah, exactly. And if it doesn't work, back to the drawing board.
In your short but intense time in real estate, it's just like trial by fire. What's been your most significant or strangest or most interesting deal that you've completed? Doesn't have to be the great one.
It's still very early for me. And again, like I have more of a goal of being an investor. So definitely the most significant deal was the first one. That's the one that's, gotten me in the game. It's actually kind of funny. Sometimes I forget we own the building. We're just, so it's kind of a weird experience, but, and, thankfully it's been pretty, I feel like we got really lucky. In fact, the more I am in the space, I'm like, man, we got a steal. So
isn't that funny how looking backwards, you're like, that wasn't so bad as much hair as I lost from that.
Yeah. So, it's, that is definitely the most important one. I'm in the midst of working with a couple clients on a value add deal that they completed last year. I think that one so far has been the most interesting on like an outside perspective. They bought an 11 unit in the Wilmore Historic District.
Where is that in California? So for those who don't know.
Yeah, so it's an old district just off of kind of behind and to the west, I believe, of downtown Long Beach, northwest.
Okay.
But they bought an 11-unit building and had this really interesting pivot point, which was somehow the seller or the owner had converted them to individual units. So there was potentially an opportunity to sell them off individually. But I mean, the rents there were less than $1,000. So huge project, a lot of value, a lot of underwriting, a lot of trying to do as much as you can up front. And they're actually in the midst of it. And they're just about on their refi now. So that was a particularly interesting one. So,
and this is LA County?
Long Beach. Yeah.
It is Long Beach. So it's not the corridor between. Okay. No. Then when you start getting north Long Beach, you start hitting that harbor gateway. Well, Long Beach is still a reasonable city. So that can happen. So they were able to renovate based on AB 1482's 60-day notice for reasonable or substantial renovation, correct?
Actually, most of it was cash for keys. So we
you didn't even have to post notices. Okay.
Yeah, no. It was we worked really hard to get the underwriting, correct for the cash for keys. In fact, it was kind of interesting. We there were some things where we gained some value, and there were some things where they definitely had some hair. Once you crack open the walls, and they definitely had some misfortune. But overall, I was going over the numbers with them, and it still fell within the overall underwriting that we did for the renovation budget. So I'm sure they wanted the lower number that we had projected, but it still fell in within tolerance.
Yeah, it's what contingencies are for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit of contingency in your budget, and on a long enough timeline, they win.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly.
A long enough timeline, you win in real estate if you could just hold on.
Well, that's why this one is particularly interesting. This is the first hard money deal I worked on. So a little
Okay.
I really want them to get their refinance and be
Yeah.
copacetic.
They will. They will. They will.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll get it. They'll get it done. They won't work that hard and have it go under. No way. They'll find out. There's so many lenders out there that aren't so institutional that they'll see the value of what they've done.
Yeah, no, definitely.
100% confident. I'll have to check back with you in a little while and see how that ended up.
Yeah.
After they do that's just want to draw attention to the point here that cash for keys still works in non-rent controlled cities, correct? Like it seems to be that, oh, we can't do that anymore. That's not my experience. And you're saying the same thing. You watched this happen over the last 6 months or a year or so, that the tenants were negotiated with individually and came up with a price that worked for them to move out. Owner gave them money and they moved out. Everyone was happy.
Yeah, I mean, that was an 11-unit building. I mean, it wasn't like
Right.
needed
No one got it.
three or four
You
people
didn't have
out.
to evict anybody. Everybody worked together. I mean, it can happen.
Yeah,
it actually does happen. It just the only thing you see online is the big protests and cancel rents, but sometimes it works out for everybody.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, the building was definitely not in living condition. I mean, it was probably a liability for the seller. So hopefully you're creating a win-win for everyone. You've got a building that's done nicely and habitable and catches up. So
right, 100%. You work mostly multifamily.
Yeah.
Right? Or do you work any retail, or why multifamily over commercial, retail, industrial?
Honestly, just because that's where I fell first. But I think also it was kind of in line what I wanted for. I mean, I made the joke that sometimes I forget I own the building. If you've got good property management, it's nice. It's kind of just a box and a vector for wealth growth. You don't have to know a ton about business and underwrite to try and say fill a commercial unit. Everyone needs housing. You can check what the comps are really clearly. I can go to Rentometer and give you what it's going to be. It's not as mysterious, a little boring even.
Right. I completely agree, by the way. But I do go head to head with guys who swear by commercial and triple net and industrial. It's always fun to do battle with them. I'm like, in the end, though, when you've got your 1 unit building, it's 10,000 square feet, and you got one vacancy, that means you're 100% vacant. I mean,
right.
My building is never 100% vacant. How about you?
No. I mean,
not bashing on industrial guys. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Yeah, no, there's almost no fire. The only fire is just as soon as you can get it done. Maybe you might have to come down with rents, but
correct. Right. You're not beholden to a lender's expectation of what the highest price ceiling was.
Right.
What would you think your greatest challenge, aside from the obvious, which is raising money of buying a multifamily on your first deal? What in the multifamily space, what do you think your biggest challenge has been from an owner's perspective? And how have you mitigated or dealt with that? Once it's been closed, because usually the biggest challenge is like the first deal and everything involved with it. But now that you're here, once you close, has it been?
I think the biggest challenge has been staying on top of everything, because you get caught up. It can be so passive. It's really hard to keep in the back of your mind. I need to check in on this. I need to manage that.
What are your top 3 things you check on with your property management company that give you peace of mind?
The biggest thing is, is there any major issues, major complaints? Are there any pipes bursting?
They better be calling you for those.
Why things like frequency of repairs? Why are we having to send a plumber out every 2 or 3 months? What's going on? Stuff like that. Are people paying their rents on time? Check the end of the statement. If they aren't, we got to start strategizing. Evictions are not an easy process. I mean, I thought going into this, I thought you'd be more backed by the teeth of the law, and it's not the case. So
self-advocates we have to be. We have to be very much on top of your documentation and making sure you're with fair housing and posted properly and keeping it within all the laws. And for the California law, then there's the city laws, and sometimes those are all different. Like,
Yeah,
you
and I hate being a nuisance, but sometimes that'll squeaky wheel gets the oil. So
you're the client, right?
yeah,
That's how we see it here at Beachfront. Like, 5 units, 50 units, 100 units. I mean, you're still the client. Our residents are our clients as well. But in the end, the owner of the building is our client, and we have to keep both happy.
yeah. A lot of times it's just asking a question, putting it in front of them, and they want to get the job done. But I mean, I can only imagine how many, your property managers, how many units they and buildings they manage. So
if you could improve one thing, and all the technology exists that we could do with property management, just as an industry, from your experience so far, what would it be? What would be like? You hear like the word like communication, but that's a kind of a catch-all. But just from a younger person in the industry looking from a different angle, what would you improve if you were going to start a property management company, or if you could change anything at even a big property management company? What would it be?
yeah, I think I'd want kind of like a better dashboard because as an
Better
owner,
dashboard.
a lot of times unless you grew up in construction, I mean, my parents were physicians. They were not handy. I know nothing about housing. I know nothing about maintenance or any of that stuff. It's really hard to kind of learn and chunk things down to a high level. So there was something to say, a timeline, plumbing, I think you're going to have to service this in 15 years. Well, now I know that's on the horizon. I can start moving forward to that. And I don't have to wait for you to knock on my door and say, like, you should start thinking about this.
See, right. Property management plan for CapEx over the next 10 to 15 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can think of.
In 20 years, we're going to need the roof to replace it. Or in 10 years, the fire sprinklers need to be retested by.
Yeah, exactly. I can have a one-page sheet that I know exactly, especially, I mean, I only have the one property so far. I can't imagine what it's like when you've got to keep track of like sometimes 10, 20 buildings. So
you have a lot of software for that.
yeah, exactly. So
all of your dashboards in your management software. Yeah. With here it's Yardi, but it could be x.com, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's someplace to track it when it gets
exactly
that many, because each building's like its own little company. As ARs and APs, and as clients and tenants and vendors, and that makes a property management company like the biggest like conglomerate of asset management little companies there is.
Right.
Yeah, we manage like 1,000 different little companies, something like that.
Yeah, and each one has an individual problem. It's not
correct. It's never the same. Never the same in property management any day.
Yeah.
What advice would you give? I mean, even coming, I mean, and this is a great opportunity because I'd love to hear what you have to say. 3 years in, still going strong. You got a great attitude on what's going on. And I mean, I've been fortunate to have seen a cycle. So I've seen all these things are just weird and no one really knows what's going on is what you really do find out. And it's kind of a waiting game. But what advice would you give to the JP of the future, or someone's trying to get into real estate now or soon? What would you tell them to do, or advise them if they want to get in like right now or the next like 6 months or so?
Yeah, it's a little cliche. I mean, literally, you can go to talks all the way about just getting started, but I really do think it is the most important. I know sometimes it's harder, but especially working with clients that are just trying to get started. Even the short time that I've seen a couple of clients kind of like take the leap, and then you start looking back at the numbers, and you're like, oh, this is all right. We're doing pretty well here, and they're getting the gains. And then you have the other people that you've talked to, and some of it's not their fault, a life change or something like that. But there's always going to be a life change. When you're not in the game, it's really hard. But once you're in the game, do tax deductions, you can do 1031 exchanges. The snowball starts. I think people get scared with real estate. There's always value. You can do an exchange and maybe take a haircut on a property and just reallocate. But you're in the game and you get that allocation for the long term.
To sum it up, just start. Find that cash, however you can get it, to get that first bit of deposit and run with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think for us working with clients, especially now, the goal for us is to make sure you get in a building that you can hold. Because if you hold something long enough, eventually it kind of works. By no means, don't be a cowboy. Don't take on like a ton of negative without an end in sight. But
this is not the cowboy time of the cycle. No.
Yeah, exactly.
That's coming, but not now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't know if you guys would know it, but one of my favorite facts is like the 2008 recession. I think we looked at historical data on multifamily rents, and I mean values dropped like 30-40%, but rents dropped 10. Earlier you're cash flowing, the earlier you're safe.
Right.
And where values are now.
Because commercial is predicated on your NOI, your bottom line. It's not
Right.
emotional. Single family homes are emotional, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's
Which
based
is
on how much
yeah,
somebody
I don't
wants to pay for it.
yeah.
Not bottom line numbers, because it's the house, or even duplexes and such. They have that emotional side to it. Someone lives on site, someone's sister lives there. It's just that. Whereas you get into where you, like you say, 5 and above, it becomes, what can we do to force appreciation or and increase this bottom line as fast as possible, and help the tenants while we're doing so, and make it a better place to live for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is always that first one. How do you get going? It's like you're white knuckling, like, oh my gosh, right? I have all my friends and family's money in this deal. This has got to work. Good God help me. I've been there. I know the pain. And but once you do it, it's never as bad as you seem, right?
Right. And I think I got fortunate. I literally lucked into the network that I'm in. Always nice to have somebody that's doing it, done it, that you can just tap on the shoulder and say, hey, am I crazy, or is this, what's going on? Because there's always something new that you just didn't know before.
Like mentors, right?
Yeah.
Very good point. Like mentors that have done it before. I have them myself. I will until I die. And I have usually several. Yeah, and it's not my attorney. it's people who are 10, 15, 20 years older than me that own a lot more buildings that have been in it, who give me advice. And I'll throw them a deal. Hey, what do you think about this structure? Would you buy this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, well, if I was really wanting to put the work in, yeah, you could get that kind of answer. That has a lot of value. I think a lot of new investors. I left that fact on the table for a while, right? But it sounds like you came in knowing what you're about to do. Mentors and money in hand, ready to rock and roll. Like you'd researched pretty well, JP. That's I mean, in hindsight, right? At least it sounds that way.
But it was still terrifying the entire way. I mean, especially that first one. I was like, I might just be making the biggest mistake I've ever made
with a whole bunch of people's other money. Money. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I remember this hairline right here was definitely, I think, from like my first deal, because it was. I digress anyway. So thank you for sure that, JB, that first deal is terrifying, but once it's done, it is done. And then you have an asset to refinance off of, cost segregate, taxes, bank cost, accelerate depreciation, force appreciation, all those buzz terms. Put rubs on it.
Yeah.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have ratio utility billing service at your building, this is your PSA to make sure your property management company does that ASAP. Yeah.
Rubs, you're starting to compete with those triple nets, aren't you?
And it's starting to, but it's all down to NOI.
Yeah.
When banks evaluating, they're looking at your rent roll and your NOI.
Yeah.
And that's it. And location a little bit, but but if you're getting high rents in a bad location.
I was just about to say, with California, you're kind of lucky. Like if you can add any value, it's all valued high. So
right. Yeah. That is one good thing about California real estate. It can't get much higher than here. So if you're in here, it's hard to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
You can buy 100 units, but it's in the middle of nowhere and maybe it's 75% vacant.
Well, and at the end of the day, you're trying to turn $1 into $1.10.
That's it.
However you turn it into $1.10.
All right, JP, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Lightning round questions, real estate style. Question 1. What's your favorite book?
The Da Vinci Code. I love puzzles and history, so it was great to see it all intertwined and very entertaining.
2. What's one thing that absolutely terrifies you?
Being newer to the business, I want every client to walk away with a home run. So the client not walking away with a home run, that's my biggest fear.
I promised I wouldn't comment. You are right. Third question. You get to have dinner with any fictional character. We're talking like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, something like that.
Yeah,
Any fictional character from the past or the present. What is it? Who and what is it? And what is the one question you ask them?
it's childish and you can definitely laugh. It's Iron Man, and I just need to know how the suit works. From physics and engineering background, how do you take, science and make magic? Obviously.
I don't think we're too far from that these days.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I've never heard Iron Man. That's a good one. Next question. What's the best gift you've ever received from anyone?
So this is a bit of a cheesy one, but just the time and the conversations with my uncle. He was the business guy. He was the guy that knew about investing. So it literally wouldn't be in my mind or in my radar unless we sat down and talked about it, over dinner and other things. And then you start asking questions.
What's your favorite failure? It doesn't have to be real estate related. It could just be, what is the biggest, nastiest favorite failure you've ever had in life?
I hate pain. So this one is actually my favorite failure is when I was going, because I was trying to negotiate my own deal on our first one. And I messed up and immediately told the listing agent that we were willing to make like a list price offer. So see immediately you recognize it. It was also my first deal as like an agent and everything. I like to experiment with myself before other people.
That's amazing.
But the reason why I like it is because I made a cardinal mistake that put us on a weak negotiating foot and probably prevented us from getting anything, and maybe a tens of $1,000 mistake, but the metrics of the deal were so good that it's still working out. So it's what felt like a huge blunder is still okay.
Actually, it was a win.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Not too people can say that. All right, last two. What's your favorite habit, daily habit, or stack of habits that you do daily or maybe weekly to set yourself up physically and mentally for success?
For me, the biggest habit that makes a big difference is just showing up. I need to, plan out, this is where I need to be. This is what's allocated for that time. And I'm focusing on only that for that period.
Yeah, showing up to the phone.
Yeah, nothing happens if you don't show up. So
last question. This one's an open mic. Say anything you want to say. What do you have to say to anybody out there? Go.
Anybody. I was prepared for, what belief has improved my life. Coming from a math and like science background, I always thought you kind of like box the answer, and the less you kind of worked with people, the better, because it kind of cut through things. But in a good way in this business, I've seen that people are equally as important, and building relationships greases the wheels and gets everything done. Don't ignore, the people, or kind of be human about it the entire way.
I really like that, JP. Continual networking and staying in touch and in a continual improvement environment. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And be genuine about it. So
I've been genuine about it. Exactly. Yeah. Because real estate gets really bad when people start lying because it takes the real out of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the big crux of the industry. Is like, it is real estate, so the integrity level has to be really high because we're dealing with real stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, if you're dealing with something that requires, we're not dealing with stocks, which I don't think are real. Because 20 million in my money disappears in stocks, where to go?
Well,
right.
Well,
20 million real estate disappears.
An asset, like, it's all about motivations. And if you don't get everyone's motivations in line, you don't have a transaction, and nothing happens until there's a transaction.
100%. All right, JP. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. That great interview. Any final parting shots, parting words?
No, thanks to David for getting me on here and setting this up, and thanks to you for having me.
Marketing manager. And how can people get in touch with you, JP, if they're looking to buy apartment buildings? So what's your contact?
So you can email me at jp@buckinghaminvestments with an s.com. You can call me at 562-881-2585. Absolutely no pressure, all exploration. If you're curious, no time is wasted. Just ask.
Awesome. There it is. JP Finkelstein from Buckingham Investments. We appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for coming on. I know your time is valuable. Tell David I said hello when you see him if you see him before I do. And thanks so much for being on, man. That's it. Wow.